like a cell phone, like BlackBerry kind of a use devices. Again, got to build something, raise monies for that. So there is another kind of a commercial angle to that. Then came the internet, entire internet on a PC-based internet or laptop-based internet. And then now the last thing which I did was for completely mobile solutions, where also I got to build something and then raised money. Talking about the companies where I worked before I started my own fund 1.5 years back, I was a president at Paytm, ran that role for 4 years. Beyond building products and different launching businesses, also helped Paytm raise little over $2 billion across various rounds, started from SoftBank, Berkshire Hathaway, Alibaba, and few other investors from Japan. Interestingly, also helped them set up international operations beyond India. Before Paytm, I was part of Alibaba Group in China, so spent 6.5 years in China, scaling their business operations as well as launching global products for Alibaba and their other business like Alipay, etc. Very interesting kind of a journey from a design perspective. I look back, right? And also was responsible for investing globally. So Lazada, Paytm, and few other deals is something which I led when I was in Alibaba. Was also at a Yahoo before, managing the main Yahoo.com site for about 22 different countries. China was one of them, India was one of them, and China. That's why Alibaba English happened in my life. And another 5.5 years before that was spent in desktop-based product, which is built out of India as well as the US in Seattle, where it's all Windows-based, and it's a CRM product created for enterprises. Whereas most of my other experiences were primarily on internet, looking for mass of consumers. Investments, looking from an investment perspective, last about 7 years I've been investing actively. So have my personal portfolio about more than 30 companies so far, has got good returns. But I think more than returns, I would call it as like coming with a design background, there's always some kind of a evaluation criteria from a design perspective when I look at investing in companies. But that could be my personal view, but I'll touch upon a little bit of a generalist view of VCs also here. And last but not least, like currently right now I'm running a fund which is from which we have invested about 11 companies so far, where the ticket size are a little larger. So we do up to $1 million kind of initial check and then do a follow-on up to $3.5 million. Now, so that's a little bit of a background. So it's a mix of design, understanding of consumers, backing interesting ideas which can possibly become larger kind of companies. We have one unicorn right now in a portfolio. So again, I think less of design, but I think the interesting problems they could solve from a community angle perspective. But now with that background, let me kind of touch upon today's topic, right? I think, and I'll start with this question, right? Many times when I meet designers, they have this question of, I have this great idea, can I raise a fund, right? That's possibly one of the questions designers have, because they do see that parallelly, let's say somebody from the same IIT could raise much more money or a similar kind of idea get more funded. So what are the ingredients of raising money to some extent, right? Or second is, I have a great idea, I can design it well, but how do I then get it to market, right? And third important thing, I think, which is again maybe possibly today's topic, is what is the outside in view when an investor looks into a company, and that's a little bit I'm going to deep dive on and share more. Is if I'm an investor, I'm looking at a company which has been working on some idea. What are the design inputs we look for? So as when I wear my investor hat, when I look at a company, when I'm evaluating a company, yes, the idea can be good. The founder can have good experience of working, good pedigree with good company experiences, etc. But if I look at from a design perspective, what are my questions possibly? I'm going to maybe possibly touch upon those questions, and maybe at the end I'll try to summarize in a form. There's one slide possibly I'll share with you where it kind of possibly summarizes what I would be sharing. So let me start. How maybe the VCs look at startups. So I think before we get into design itself, a little bit of context of understanding the dynamics of VC ecosystem or a startup ecosystem itself, right? So and there again, I'm not going to deep dive into like different type of investors. I'm going to very generalist view right now with lack of time. Take from a investor perspective. Just for your simplicity, understand there are early stage VCs who invest in ideas or very early stage of product readiness. There are guys who are growth investors. So when product is matured, the initial set of customers, some revenue is coming, and then they are investing for growth, right? So once you already have something in hand, now money comes in for growing the money, right? Growing that. The third is basically then that's where the real thing is come to like process and PE kind of place where the public markets can come into picture, where the risk is far lower of investing, and that's when even regulators or everybody will allow that company to take people money, right? So even a smaller guy from a market can then invest in a company. So typically there are three stages. Early stage, you have got a growth stage, and you have public markets. Public markets are typically very, very mature, where the design itself is come as a process. Now, if these three phases, if I look at from a company perspective, how investor looks at, let's look at take the first phase, which is the early stage kind of a play, and maybe some of, and that's where the startups also lie, right? You won't call Tata today as a startup, which is in the third phase, which is where the public is putting money into Tata or Reliance of the world. Whereas early stage is typically at an idea stage. You possibly might have just an idea, and where you're trying to raise money to get that idea to market. Or you might have idea executed with few initial set of customers. Possibly they might be paying you for something, or they might not be paying, but possibly you have thought process that they might pay over a period of time, right? So, and this early stage itself, again, if you're kind of still holding on with my kind of thought process, is divided into again couple of buckets, right? And this is very important for you to understand. The first bucket is founder market bucket, right? So when I say founder market bucket is when I look at, let's say, the guy comes with ideas saying that, oh, I want to kind of make a new matrimonial website, let's say, or I want to make a new, let's say, cosmetics-led sales product for that matter, or it could be financial product. We just look at the founder to market fit, right? When I say founder market fit is basically, is this founder right person to solve this particular problem, right? And now this evaluation can have multiple dynamics, whether this founder comes from the same industry or not. Sometimes we ourselves take a contrarian bet, like for looking at, let's say, Tesla. Tesla is a company which is formed by a guy who doesn't understand automotive, didn't understand automotive before, right? Or if you look at Paytm for that matter, the guy who built Paytm is completely different background, has a different background, telecom background, and now doing financial products. And so investors actually look at, but end of the day, it's still a founder market. What is the trait of a founder, which I can evaluate at that stage, by which there is an answer on a table saying that, okay, this founder is the best founder to solve for this particular idea, right? Now, that's where the design also comes into picture, right? So it need not be always a case where you would say, you know what, this person, let's take an example, somebody's building a new e-commerce site. He doesn't have to be coming as a coder from, let's say, Flipkart. He doesn't have to be a product manager of Flipkart. He can be designer of Flipkart also, because he has seen the similar dynamic and possibly have an edge of designing something better for consumer, not just coding better for a consumer, right? So there is definitely a window in a founder market fit also, where designers can be evaluated for their experiences or for their logical thinking from a consumer market perspective. And it need not be always, as I said, you need not to be a designer of Flipkart to be starting a new e-commerce company. If you have worked on, let's say, digital consumers, so you might have come and your design product, let's say financial product, right? For a digital savvy Indian consumers. Now, maybe the same cohort of customers can possibly buy, let's say, products of certain type. It could be, let's say, automotive kind of a thing. So if you come and say that, you know what, last 5 years, I've understood the dynamics of people who can pay, or their affordability indexes are around automotives which are falling between 5 to 50,000 rupees or 20 to 50,000 rupees. And that's what I think I understand is better. And that's why I'm the best founder market fit for solving that particular problem. And that's where I would say touch upon from design perspective. Now, assuming, let's say, if you get from that and that is done, sometimes companies are also in the product market stage. When I say product market is basically, it starts with founder market. Somebody picks up an idea and says that I'm the best fit, etc. Then he's possibly even bootstrap the idea and gets to the level where the product is ready. Now, when the product is ready, now there is little bit more data which the investor has. That, okay, this guy came up, he has bootstrapped, or he might have raised a smaller amount of money to get here. Now the product is ready. and is the product ready to take on the market, right? Now there is in a product market phase. So it's less of a founder now. It's more of a product because he has got a tangible thing in hand, which an investor can evaluate. That now is this fitting well in the consumer or not, right? Now again, if I take it from a design perspective, right? What matters, right? Is few things. Yes, you might have a product, and obviously there is natural. I think most of you identify when I say product market fit. That time somebody would have thought about that design of a product which is best suited for the consumer, right? And there is different dynamics of making the product suitable for the consumers. But how, if an investor, right? Let's say, and I'll give two examples. Let's say this company A and company B. Building the same products. Let's say company A is in America and B is for Bharat. Let's A is for America, B is for Bharat. So it's for simple understanding. Both of them start at the same time, maybe same idea, everything. Now, company A, which is in America, would have taken, let's say, 6 months to get to 10,000 customers. Company B would have taken 2 years to get to 10,000 customers, right? Now, both will have a design dynamics to it. The fact that company A's product was best created to fit first time, right? They didn't go to alpha, beta kind of gamma kind of version. They just made the first product itself so intuitive that it has got enough virality. There's enough word of mouth because people love the interaction of the product. There's a wow effect of viewing the product. So there's an entire journey of that product. And when versus company B, which took 2 years, there could be many dynamics to, let's say, because they have less of money, the Indian consumers may not be as ready as, let's say, American consumers. But typically we, as the investors, also look at, are these people, if given the same kind of, let's say, both founders from IIT, let's say, both had, let's say, $2 million to start with, etc. They also look at design element. How fast? What is the velocity of you getting those 10,000 customers? And believe me that many times it has got a designer designing angle to it. From founder market to product market, if to get that first 10,000 customers, the velocity is directly proportional to design element to it, right? So, and every investor, when I put $1 million, I'm not looking for these guys to again organically grow, right? I want them to run, if they have run, let's say, at a 50 kilometer per hour speed last 6 months, I want them to run at 100, right? At least, or maybe 500, because I want 10x return when I invest. So it's important. So these people not just have to show that, okay, they have used capital efficiently, they have put the teams efficiently, they also show that my product has got enough designer elements that they hook on to customers better. Or maybe both the company A and B, let's say America, Bharat companies, both have taken 6 months for 10,000 customers, but you may still feel that this American company gets $100 million where the Indian company gets only $5 million. Mainly because maybe the American company has designed in such a way that the time spent by the user on that particular app could be 5 hours in a week, whereas here it could be only 20 seconds, 20 minutes. And that is again a designer thing, like the same particular product. And that's, I think it's related to, and I'll take an example, let's say, and let me take maybe the example which, I'll take something from China, right? So in China, e-commerce websites have one interesting metrics which most of the e-commerce companies worldwide do not have. It's a time spent on a website. Okay, so but if you ask a Flipkart guy, so then how should I? What is the time spent on Flipkart, right? Actually, it is not their metrics. They just say that, okay, how quickly I can come to Flipkart, find what I want, and go. That's a Google strategy, right? How can I get to the best search results? Right? And same thing on Amazon, right? Can I find what I want very quickly? Even if I'm in a browsing mode, I'm searching something which I don't know. They want to get you to browse what you wanted very quickly. It's like a shopping mall phenomena, right? You don't, if you have, everybody has a personal thinking, right? A personal kind of I would say, biases. Even somebody's window shopping, there are different cadre of people. Somebody will window shop on a ground floor, which is Zara's and Gucci's of the world. Somebody might do window shopping in Big Bazaar, which is the 3rd, 4th floor. Somebody might do super floor. So it takes you directly to the floors. Whereas in China, they just say that, okay, let people spend as much time on my e-commerce site as possible. So if you look at the Chinese website, or even Japan, Korea that way, and it's something related to the culture also, because they're context cultures, whereas we are low context culture as we go Western. they have built this into their e-commerce website as design. So, and that's where they actually have a content strategy. So now Amazon feels that, okay, I should have Netflix, I should have Amazon Prime and solutions so that people spend more and more time on the Amazon ecosystem. But that has been already chewed and churned maybe 5-7 years back earlier in China, because the culture was context culture. Now, why I'm saying so is this becomes very important, right? For if there are two companies doing the same thing, if I'm evaluating, if both the metrics are same, their revenue is same, everything is same, then it comes to user engagement level, right? Now the engagement is complete designer function. You cannot say that I didn't design proper product right, but still people are spending more time. That is not a true statement at all, right? So it's very important. How do you look at from that? Is the second phase, which is the product market. So first we talked about founder market. We talked a little bit of a design elements there. The second phase is the product market fit, where again, what was your journey? Whether the velocity of your growth has contribution from design perspective matters, and can that velocity be doubled down further if I'm investing $1 into it, right? And again, I'll touch upon a few examples if time permits. How do you increase the velocity of design, right? That is something to do with go-to-market strategies, etc. But I'll touch upon that later. So that's the second phase of found product market. And third is maybe this is something which typically most of the books ends at product market and founder market, but there's something called process market also. Like today, Tata, for example, Ratan Tata is not thinking of bringing new innovations in the company, right? Neither the one particular product vertical. The process itself, there is a process, innovation process itself in place, where that every 6 months there is a cycle that, okay, if I'm Tata Tea, I have to innovate certain things, or if I'm Tata Elixir, I have to do something new. So the process itself takes care of the new evolution. So earlier founder was driving it, second time product was driving it, third is the process is driving it. And once the process is mature, that's where possibly the public monies can come in. But maybe we'll touch primarily in the first two phases here itself, which is the founder market and product market. We touched upon few aspects. Now I'll go a little bit deeper here. When I say founder market, we did talk about, are there, assume, let's say, we take an idea, let's say we want to say create a simple e-commerce website, let's say for cosmetics again, let's take Nykaa as an Nykaa kind of site, let's say. Now you got a design element to it, etc. You have designed the best e-commerce site. But I think what matters also there is how are you doing things differently, right? Because investor has option to choose from 5 options, right? So and typically I'm deliberately taking e-commerce example here because it's a commoditized problem, right? E-commerce, you can use WooCommerce, Shopify, etc. So there's very less to design in the pure e-commerce itself, right? So you might have to innovate a little bit differently. How can I make this habitual to my consumer? What are my engagement drivers, even at idea stage, right? When I'm pitching to, let's say, investor, and if I'm looking from a designer perspective, my engagement drivers with my e-commerce site can be completely different, right? Or my buying behavior, the which I want to inculcate into my buyers can completely be different. That's again a designer, I would say, input here. And this is where 2-3 things come into picture from design perspective. One is I talked about output, right? What are my engagement drivers, and I'm going to build for it. What are my habitual habits, what I'm going to inculcate, etc. But a lot of it goes back upwards of understanding a consumer. So the fact that we say it's a cosmetic, and when we say segmenting consumers, let's say whether it's women-centric, men-centric, women, or with which kind of age group, etc. That demographic understanding and that I think a lot of time it is been done by non-designers. But I think that's where designers can possibly do a good job. How do I, if I take the same e-commerce play, if I take these clusters of customers, for that cluster of customer, if my output levers are engagement, commerce, habit formations, maybe subscription kind of thing, any loyalty, aspiration kind of thing, how do I build these 4-5 output levers in my consumers? The solution, the entire solutioning has a designer input to it. Or maybe possibly the designers should actually design that thing. And I think this is where in the founder market stage, there are a lot of opportunities. And the last and most important opportunities, I think, is the pitch deck itself, right? Many times we have seen great pedigreed founders. Possibly they have great execution capabilities also. We have seen that before. Maybe sometimes it also happens that we know the founder because he's worked earlier in our companies where we work, but their pitches are not great, right? And that actually maybe sometimes what also happens, and typically we don't invest in self-start, despite we having all the bells and whistles of this guy. He can design it right, everything right, and execute right, because we know that if we can invest without a pitch, but tomorrow when he want to raise bigger, he has to still make his pitch. We cannot help him that way, right? So it's very important that the pitch is what and it's related to communication design. How do I communicate the entire packaging, what you're designing for an idea, solution, your go-to-market, everything? It's put together in a concise and precise fashion that the investor understands it very quickly and also appreciates, right? And many times, I think I can tell you right now, 5 out of 10 pitches are not greatly designed. Rest 5 can have some design, but there are only 1 or 2 which will stand out, right? But I have also seen, I'll just tell a little bit of pitfall here. Like a lot of times when design, in fact, I've seen some design kind of a fraternity background pitches also. The pitch looks visually very appealing, but a lot of content is missing. So a lot of time when the designers make pitches, actually they don't talk commerce, they talk about product, user engagement, etc. But the investor is looking, he has $1 in mind, right? So unless you give him an appreciation of his dollar investment, it doesn't kind of fly well, right? Or fly that easily. And this I'm telling from my background. At the same time, I would say what I just told you in the last 1.5-2 minutes is completely wrong. When you look at a company like Canva, right? Canva raised a lot of money completely from designing perspective, because their target, everything is design. When their output they do for design, they did a lot of pitches. They were unsuccessful because maybe the investor was looking through my mindset, right? Where my dollar and can I create more value, etc. But then they create entire completely different phenomena, which is completely contrary to what I said. And some investors do take such bets. But if I take a general view, what happens is the best pitches can have great design inputs, but at the same time they have to be comprehensive. They need to answer question in terms of what is the insight you have from a market perspective. How are you solving for that insight, right? And I'll tell you some example for that matter. Like a lot of in India stagnated long time in fintech from an investment perspective. When I say investment, for example, let's say some of you will ICICI Direct kind of accounts, right? These demat accounts, and that was primarily banking forte, right? And then somebody like Zerodha came, so they actually took the market saying that, okay, you know what, I'm going to go door to door to get more customers. So they went to distribution way to get customers. But now then, that's when these companies like Grow and maybe Grow kind of company, Grow or Windwell, that's a company came in. They said, you know what, the problem of India is not people don't have money. People have money. It's just people don't understand the investment as a subject itself. So they went a content oriented. So they started with a content. So their insight was different than ICICI Direct. ICICI Direct was basically, okay, whoever has money, I'm going to pay, sir, please demat account kholo. And then I try to sell him wealth management services so that now your money, you've got account, which talks to buy, etc. Whereas companies like Grow and all these new age companies, they say that, you know what, I'm going to take a different route. My go-to market will be content and communication led. So I will first tell my consumers, hey, come to me, I'll guide you the first principles and basic principles of investment first, and then let you kind of do this thing. There are also some interesting companies from US. I'll take an example. There's this company, Cache or something. What they do, I think, is, so how do you train somebody investments, right? It's very hard. Like if I tell you suddenly, if I take let's say Renuka Sugar as a stock and start talking here, maybe it's a wrong group to talk, right? Renuka Sugars and what is happening with them and that kind of thing, or Bhushan Steel for that matter, right? Or something weird, right? But what this company did actually, they said that, you know what, I want to solve the same problem, but I'll tell you to invest in a day-to-day product. So for example, every day morning till evening, if you use Patanjali more, hey, why don't you buy Patanjali stock? And you know what, you don't have to buy as a stock. Whenever you buy a Patanjali product on Flipkart, whatever cashback you get, why don't you buy a stock of it? So now what happened, it becomes very easy. So I'm not buying something which maybe somebody, some stockbroker tells me, or maybe some other investor tells me. I'm buying something which I'm consuming, right? And that become a phenomenon right now. And then also the buying itself didn't go through a demat account. It became like an embedded buying. When I, instead of taking a cashback on, let's say, a toothpaste which I'm buying, you know what? Why don't I buy a stock of it, right? So I'm buying that company because it's the fact that I'm using it. Maybe the share price should go up, right? And that became an interesting phenomenon. So, and that's again, I would say that's a different strategy from a. So they took an insight that okay, the market has money, it's just the knowledge is missing. So I'm going to take that as a you create a knowledge and giving them nudges to kind of invest into this function. Now, a lot of these insights actually are very simple micro, but they stay longer, right? So don't have, again reinvent a big kind of thing. I think very simple micro innovations will work. I think this company which I'm talking about has already reached over 700 million plus valuation already. Same thing, like if I'm using Uber, why don't you buy Uber stock, right? Because the fact that you're using that means that company is successful. The fact that means you know the brand, you are putting money, and so there are enough indicators for you to kind of invest in a company versus something which is very opportunistic kind of buying. So those are elements which you can bring at a founder market kind of thing. Coming to the product market, I think I'm leaving the simple bucket of how do you design best products, etc. But when you create products, what the investors are looking at is like, I told you there's a velocity. What was your journey from founder market to product market? To get to that 10,000 customers, what was the time you took? What is the money you took? And was there any kind of a design element which worked great for you, right? And the design element can be very simple. Maybe you built a community hook saying that, if I post a photograph, I can share it on my Facebook. 5 more people can come in, right? So there is some virality built into that. The entire community gamification aspect. And a lot of it is typically designers forte. Because possibly designers understand the customers, right? The time and context and knowledge levels of that customers in the context of the product which they are designing. So they got possibly the best person to make an impact on the velocity of that growth from founder market to product market. And I think what also happens is, and it's very easily communicatable, right? Because if you say, because of the community element which I built, that's why my growth from month 1 to month 2 was 3x. And then suddenly I got a 7x jump because my community element, the snowballing really started working. Or you could say, my upselling, cross-selling. Let's say if I'm checking out, let's say some shirt from a Flipkart, let's say it's a cart, it might be high likelihood that I might be buying something, maybe toy with it, right? So upselling, cross-selling and engines, again, they relate to the customer's kind of a psyche at that time. So throughout the customer journey, there are a lot of design, I would say, angles which designers can look at to kind of bring an impact. The impact can be velocity of company's growth. The impact can be economic impact. The fact that if you work on upsell, cross-sell kind of models, upsell, cross-sell are the best examples where I think designers should spend more time because you possibly understand the consumer better and their context better. So what sells with what can, and not just always it's a selling question, but it will also be a communication question. What is the best time to communicate a consumer that come tomorrow and buy something more or buy it right now? Is a typical designer input, right? So it can possibly a direct economic impact also. Right? So I think this is from a startup perspective. So we as VCs do look at designer inputs, and some of these designer input do become decision points for us, saying that this versus A versus B has a little bit of a designer angle to it, so I will be investing in B because my dollar might have a better ROI, right? That's it. And what I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to show you some slide which I just prepared for this session. It's a single slide. Just 1 second. Just let me know if you can see the slide.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, so I just trying to summarize here is every business idea, right? And I just kind of talked about a few of the things. Like I did talk about founder, I did talk about market, I did talk about product and services, which typically what you look at. But there's also go to market, right? How do you take this product to market, right? Which is typically we call it as marketing, but there is little bit, if you double click that thing, there is a lot more from a design perspective. Then the next thing is, yes, you got a product, you got customers, the product is already sold to customers. Today's world, even if it's a physical mixie or a washing machine, grinder, everything what you use at home, there is this element of engagement, right? Even if it's a washing machine, typically the user is not, companies are not looking at only to like, okay, washing machine should just wash my clothes. They are trying to build some kind of interactivity to it, right? Maybe the washing machine start talking to you, right? So there is an engagement phenomena which is coming new, and that's why I keep it separate here, that engagement design is very important. And last is economics, right? So there are a few elements which are kind of exploded from a startup perspective, and which typically most of the startup do talk about, but I'm looking today, this is only from a design perspective. So founder, I think we talked about from there's a communication becomes very important. And him are saying that the most important is pitch. How do we make the pitch more concise and more precise from a communication perspective? Communication design is important here. So this bottom line, I'm just talking about design elements, design aspects which can come into market. Some people here in the group would definitely be talking about customers, research, customer data, but can designers also bring customer insights, right? That becomes very important. Trends and forecast. This is very important, right? A lot of times I've seen designers do understand consumer, they do initial data collections, data research, etc., but they miss out on trends and forecasting. So I think this is again important, right? Why would, and I think this is almost like I want to tease you guys saying that why should there be a McKinsey or an MBA guy telling, you know what, based on the today's trend of fashion, I forecast that next 5 years this fashion trend will evolve, right? I think why not a designer can take a part, right? Because possibly he knows the customer psyche much better, and the evolution of a particular design or product or habitual patterns much better. So I think trending and forecasting becomes very, very important. And I'll take a simple example. For example, simple tools like Google Analytics, right? They do give me data in terms of locations, where my customers are coming from, what are my customer clusters. Are you guys, when you're designing anything, are you looking at any kind of trend related data there? Like, you know what, suddenly this Lucknow cluster, I designed my product for metro, but suddenly some of these clusters like Nasik, Pune, or maybe Indore started bloating, and then why are you double clicking on it to find out, okay, what is really happening different, because your hypothesis was different, but suddenly new type of customers are coming, or maybe somebody from Northeast might be kind of doing something with your website or a product for that matter. Even from a distribution perspective, Northeast distributors are stocking much more goods what you are actually designing. So trends and forecasting becomes very, very important aspect even from design perspective. Can you design or forecast trends? Or if not the trend which is somebody like let McKinsey own it, but can you say that, you know what, the flow which I designed in my product today, this is how it's going to change. And I'll take a few examples. For example, I'll tell you right now, many things you would have done across, let's say if you used online websites, right? They used to have forms, right? Form, page 1, go to next, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, that kind of thing. But today, most of these forms are vanished. And you do that, most of the things, in maybe more complex things in an app in 1 or 2 screens. And it is not that you don't get those inputs, right? What has really happened is the consumer has changed. Earlier, you had to give him guidelines, sir, please put name here, specify this, right, put this captcha. Next, again, you ask more details. So what has happened, that whole customer base, their knowledge, the context has moved the platform from desktop based to mobile. Their knowledge levels are different. Today's kids are born with touch. They don't understand mouse as a ecosystem at all. So a lot of these levers are design levers for you to actually forecast. And so for example, let's say today if I'm designing a touch screen, I think I'm designing this company for, let's say, next 10 to 15 years, you have to design something for voice input. You cannot just say that all my inputs are going to be only touch screen inputs, right? Because touch screen will, like what happened with button phones to touch screen, irrelevancy came in, irrelevancy will come in for touch screen also to some extent. So you might start teasing something from a voice input perspective. Can I be the first to make, let's say, financial product from voice-based financial product? Why should I say type in saying that, okay, put select TCS and I want to buy 2 stocks? Why can't I just say, hey Alexa, can you buy 5 TCS stocks for me? Hey, can you sell 5 let's say Reliance for me, right? So it's as you don't need a lot more other inputs anyway, because voice and everything can be recognized very easily. Where the identity management was not great 5 years back, so you had to have login, password, forms, and those kind of things. So evolution has happened, the trends have changed, and that's very important here. Market mapping of solutions. This is again very important. And this could be international. When a company goes from company A from one country goes to another country, when you go global, many times the way companies work it this way, right? When even I did the same thing. When I opened, let's say, put your offices in international offices, and so first is find a guy who can really become a country manager, right? And then possibly the guy who can possibly design products and create products. The designer comes a little later, right? But I think here is an opportunity from market perspective. Whenever there is a new market opening, it's less of a P&L question. Obviously, P&L is important, but at the same time, it's very important that how my company, which has designed X solution, will be mapped to that market from a consumer dynamic perspective. So market mapping of solution becomes very, very important. And I'll tell you one interesting example here. I'll just take maybe 1.5 2 minutes here. Is why QR code payment became so successful in India, right? And why it did not become successful in US, right? Or even for that matter, China. So in US, actually, internet, electricity, and everything is given, right? So every shop, this electricity, internet was there before when the POS and payments came in. So payments came after electricity and internet came. So they can afford POS machines with the card swiping, etc. That time, right? And same thing happened in China. When they launched their QR code economy, they said that, okay, the merchant has electricity, merchant has money, merchant has the internet, everything. So give everything to merchant so that if I walk in with a QR, so typically in China, what happens, you show the QR code and the scanner will pull the money from you. So if the merchant has to take, let's say, 20 RMB for your Starbucks coffee, he will pull the money from your QR code, right? And you get a message saying that $20 RMB is pulled up. Whereas in India, that doesn't work. Because in India, the vendor, the supplier, electricity and internet is not guaranteed. Like a Pani Puri doesn't have both of them. Some retail shop only has electricity, they don't have internet. And this is the problem possibly Paytm has solved. So the innovation really was understanding the customer. Because if you have solved the same way like China and those things, possibly the merchant base would have been 500,000, because there are only so many shops which has internet-enabled connections, right? And that's why the POS machines are only, I think there are about 700,000 POS machines, where the entire merchant base in India is 50 million SMBs, right? So there's a huge gap. But then Paytm solved for that gap. So we said, forget that thing, move the QR code, and customer is now going with electricity, device, and internet with him. So we made that guy dumb, and for two reasons. One is obviously this is economic, this is the factor from a dynamics perspective, but also from an economic perspective, this guy will never invest any kind of scanner also, right? Even if you make him agnostic to electricity or anything, he's not going to invest. But at the same time, we want the transaction to happen. So we made the QR code like as cheap as possible, and that's a micro innovation which is different, and that's what the market mapping was solution. So otherwise, Alipay tried in India, PayPal always been trying in India, but the biggest, I think, shift or like the leapfrogging happened when the QR code went to merchants, which then suddenly wiped out the entire POS industry and completely different. That's a market mapping solutions. Product and service, I think I'll not talk much. I think first point here, product service design is what you guys might be aware of. But second point is very important, platform migration. Many times what is happening is...
Bhushan, just sorry to interrupt you, but we have about 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah. I think I'll just wrap it here
sure,
now.
Yeah.
Platform migration, cross-platform. Many times if you look at, we are designing same solution. So same investment products, we are changing from, let's say, offline to online. We were filling forms in the banks, now we are filling online forms. Or the traditional Shadi.com, which was going, Shadis which were happening through kind of these agents, offline agents, now is happening online. So what's happening is like, we are not trying to, because human needs are more or less kind of common, right? Only thing the migration of platforms happening. And that's a bigger opportunity from product and service perspective. And this is, I think, I'm telling you from both, like if you're thinking of starting something new, it can be a traditional consumption demand pattern of consumer, change the platform, you might have a startup idea. Or if you're joining some company, when the platform migration happens, there is a design element. Go to market, I'll take the next one. And rapid fire customer maps, very important. Like we have mapped the market, we can map the customers, and possibly you are the best to map the customer because you understand customers much better at a DNA level compared to a simple demographic data what typically marketeers do have. Communication design creative, again standard, what you guys might already be doing. Last is important from a go-to-market perspective. Are there any designer elements which are brought in the product flows or product itself which can create network effects? So when I do some action, can that action be shared with, let's say, my community? Or when I do certain action, does it tease 5 more people to kind of do the similar action, right? So there is a network effect, virality, word of mouth elements can be created from a go-to-market perspective. Again, relates to that velocity element, what I talked earlier. Engagement is again a new metrics, but very, very designer focused. Product interaction, usage design. Many times when we design, we only design interaction and the workflows. We don't design the usage. And when I talk about usage, is the habit formation. I might have created a completely new different interaction of a consumer, but can I create a habit of a consumer? Can I make it a new habit? It's a designer problem to be solved. Active, non-active, again, many times most designers design for active usage, but when I say in non-active usage, for example, when washing machine is not in use, can it play a song is a non-active design time because most of the washing machines are in bathroom. When I'm taking a bath, can washing machine sing a song? Or when washing machine every month can it ping me saying that, hey, why don't you buy mostly your consumption you might have got over with your washing powder, why don't you order something, can I order it for those kind of interaction, which is non-active interaction. Upsell, cross-sell, we did talk about that. The product, when the consumer is actually using a product, a lot more upsell, cross-sell opportunity, which are directly related to revenue, engagement, customer interactions, knowledge, that kind of thing. Last but not least, economics. Most important, most designers do not touch upon it, but can you create revenue to customer maps? You understand consumers, you understand their psyche, you understand the product design, but can you say that, you know what, because of this is how revenue maps to my consumers, right? This is again very important. If you start doing it, you can actually have better P&L level inputs or budget level inputs, and possibly you also get more budget for designing some things. If you can map the revenue of a company related to consumers, and then your design and cohorts becomes very important, like what our users are doing on month, and the economics related to that. Data visualization. Again, the most important thing where designers are not playing. Most of the companies want to showcase their data. Look at Airtel advertise. They want to show how many customer interactions they're getting to the world, saying that I'm zero on my customer support. That means I'm doing the best of the service to all the people. So data visualization, internal, external, to investors, to consumers becomes very important. So this is again a design opportunity. So I just laid out few of the design opportunities. Last, I will close this session now is design economics. Is if you can measure your design in terms of dollar, time, and effort, either you save something, you gain something, you create efficiencies or conveniences, is the most important thing. So, and that's I would call as commercial design. Sometimes you design for feeling good factor that, okay, my CEO like this color and he's happy. But if you can actually nudge him saying that, you know what, this is about bringing this dollar value to a company. Instead of doing 5 screens, I'm doing 1 screen. That saves 30% of time of consumer who spend buying particular stock or buying particular item on our website, right? So, and then if you can communicate that to a consumer, and then that because of that consumer start adopting your website better, that's when you won the dollar from an investor perspective, which is directly related to design. So that's what I will just kind of end here. I know it's too much to cram in 1 hour. But hopefully you would have got something here. Happy to take more questions.
Anyways, can I jump in?
Yeah, sure.
Hey, Bhushan. Hey, Bhushan. Thank you. Very nice talk, and you have done very, very well. So congratulations. I have a question. Probably you did not touch about it. When you are investing, what is your exit strategy? When do you look for liquidation? With some example which you might have gone through in past. So that was one. The other part of this question is, when you invest, generally very early stage to a slightly mature startup, what equity do you expect, ballpark range? And then beside equity, what other things like board position and other stuff, what else do you look into gain when you are investing in a startup?
Okay.
So one is liquidation. One is liquidation or exit. The second one is your position as equity or board.
Yeah. So let me answer the second one first. It's easier. So typically, most of the investors, the good investors, I would say, they will want to take about 10-15% of your company to start with, not more, because they are doing a testing, especially in startups, right? If they are taking 20-30%, that means they are not convinced very frank. They just want to take higher pie so that even if you have to liquidate a company, they have enough to kind of make money, right? But good investors will take 10-15%, right? The amount of money really depends on what kind of sector the idea is. For example, it's a fintech, you might get, let's say, $2-3 million for it. But if you are non-fintech, if you are retail or a direct-to-consumer kind of brand, you might even get, let's say, only $200,000-$300,000 for it, right? So money I will not talk for 10-15%. Both positions are important for making sure that they have enough to to help you, because most of the time on the table you might be 2 or 3 people and the money, right? And then mostly that money stakeholding is more important. So they would want to control certain things. But at the same time, to understand most of the investors, because they use third-party money, the board position is more like cosmetic for them, right? So they don't intervene your kind of a day-to-day life anymore. They only make sure that are you spending wisely, and can you make certain calls for you. Like suddenly, if you say I'm a founder, I'm going to take 50 lakh rupees salary, right? Then they need a board position to say no, right? Otherwise, if they don't have board position, you can say I raised 1 crore, I'm taking 50 lakh salary. It doesn't work, right? The board position mainly to come from governance perspective and making sure that they don't suddenly lose out, right? People don't run away with the cash, right? Because somebody else is spending. Second, I think your question about liquidation or exit strategies differs for different VCs, but I'll talk about the way we look at things. Generally, the best exits are you would get at least 10-20x of investment in about 4 to 5 years, right? And this timeline can be different, right? And typically the exits can happen in early stages when we come in at idea to seed stage, when you have initial product ready, a few customers. Those exits typically are to the next set of VCs, possibly Series D or so. So they might not exit immediately in Series A. They might wait for 2-3 rounds. So the valuation multiples are much better. Exits again can happen in stages. So for example, if you're doing very well, I might not exit all of my equity, right? Whatever 10-15% I'm holding. And I might have diluted because you have raised a few more rounds. So I will dilute equivalent to what you will have raised later. So if I'm holding, let's say 8%, I might want to exit only 4-5%. If you're not doing well, obviously I might want to exit all of my 10%. But generally, in good companies, we exit in stages, so that suddenly if you become a unicorn after a couple of years, you get a different trigger point because market, I still have some equity left to kind of monetize it better. So that's the short answer to that.
So if I can just ask a follow-up question. So in your term sheet, when you are actually investing right at the time, do you also specify your interest for exit or liquidation round in, let's say, Series D or Series C round?
It's not round based. It's actually time based. So because most of the VCs have a fixed time in horizon, right? I have to raise my fund as well as close my fund in, let's say, 7 years, right? Mm-hmm. In our case, it's 7 plus 2 years. So within 9 years, I have to take exit. So if I'm investing right now, my typical exit, most of the VCs actually have exit periods of 5 years. Mm-hmm. So after that, then if you are doing very well, then I might stay put, extend my exit period. But 5 years, the founder is supposed to give us exit.
And how do you value your final amount when you are thinking about 4-year, 5-year? What is the market value? How do you come up with that number? If it is not gone IPO, then there should be some other matrix, right?
No, so Pradyot, no follow-up questions after that.
Yeah, so I think we should catch up separately. I think this is a little off the design topic. So
Suresh, you had a question.
Some chat.
Yeah, it's on chat.
Okay. Hi, hello, Bhushan. This is Suresh here. My question was, if the product is in I'm building a product and it is very early and just build initial prototypes, and we have a working model. So I was wondering what kind of VC or funding that I can expect, and if you can point to some those kind of any companies who would be willing to do it.
Yeah, I think maybe again I would say part of the question we can take offline, but I just tell you very simple thing like, and this is out online already, that if you are basically most of the VCs, for example, we as a VC, we focus on certain sectors, like we focus on retail, fintech, tech and health, the 4 sectors, and there are different VCs. So based on your idea, if it's let's say a specific idea, you can approach either incubators. So if, for example, if you are a healthcare idea, possibly, and you're not sure about whether you're VC ready or yet or not, you might go to incubators like GE runs a healthcare incubation, Philips runs healthcare incubation. So you might want to approach a strategic kind of incubations where they can help you kind of productize your idea. But I would still leave out one thing for you, saying that you should get either, if you are only a designer team, do get your idea evaluated before actually building prototypes. Or if you're building a prototype, make sure that you're in some customer validation. Because a lot of times I've seen, especially designer or design oriented people, they have got a patent in hand and they have got product in hand. They might have spent lots of 50-60 lakh rupees on themselves, but with zero customer. But just a personal conviction, this will work, right? So I just want to bluntly mind you that if you have a prototype, run it with your customers. If the customers are loving it or something like that, it's a good indication that okay, possibly they'll change.
Okay. Yeah. So something similar situation mine is.
Yeah, I could sense it from your sound itself.
Great. Nice listening to you.
Sure.
So Bhushan, I have a question while you're waiting for more questions. So the question is, and I think you touched upon this a little bit in the beginning, IIT versus IDC types. So question is, are designers really raising money?
I think answer to that is yes. I think, and I'll say again, that's where I would look at outside view, and then maybe I'll answer this in 2-3 points, right? You should just do a Google search saying that, typically people do like how many Stanford grads got funding, how many IITians got funding, right? You should do saying that how many designer created companies got funding, right? And I'm sure that we'll get at least 100-200 good examples who have raised more than $50 million, right? Canva being one, right? I think even Khatabook, right? Khatabook is one of the IBCM as one of the founders. I think he's a junior guy in 2003-2005 batch. So Khatabook actually it's like a simple bookkeeping app. I think they raised $250 million. That's a good example of India, where possibly this guy is actually has contributed from designing as a founder perspective. But I would say have a little bit of outside in view. Look at US, Australia, or some of the European markets. Because what I think my view of IDC is, and I may be a little contrary here, is we look at we get actually mind blocked by the academics which we learn and mind blocked by the stream which we are in, right? So I do feel, for example, I think, in fact, there's one example in my portfolio, which is actually, this guy is a designer, and it's not an IDCN, but he's creating this mental health app, right? Mental health, so it's a healthcare. But when you talk about mental health, right, a designer can map the brain better. So his philosophy is basically, how do I solve the mental health from a complete design perspective? The company name is Being, P-E-I-N-G. You should look at that company. So his approach is basically, I understand, I'm not a kind of a psychology guy, etc., but psychology is a partner. He was a partner from psychology kind of background. But his idea is basically, as a designer, I can execute this much better. Mm-hmm. So there are examples where co-founders are designers, and they are leading the entire productizations post idea, and the other guy is actually only looking from a marketing or a idea or a sales perspective.
Okay, great. Good to know that.
So you mentioned a little, just one simple question. You mentioned something about the pitch deck design, So you're saying that the quality of the visual matters a lot compared to the content. Is that what, or is that both are equally important? I thought a little bit confused there. Yeah.
No, I think again, and that's why best example. I think I'll tell you what Nimish just asked, right? Best pitches are not the best visuals, right? So, but then at the same time, if I took an IDC and you will try to create visual elements in it, right? And it can very simply be a single line statement, right? Like if you take Indigo, they will just say that I am an airline company on time every time, right? That's it. This speech can be as simple as one line, right? I'm creating an airline company which is I'm guaranteeing on time every time, right? Which was never heard before, right? Or you say Air Deccan, I will give ₹1 ticket to the guy who has never flown before. Right? I'm just taking an example, right? So a single statement tells the investor that this is something different, toppling completely. Or you would say, I'll get a rural guy invest in a stock company, right? I'll get a rural guy invest in PCs, right? So you don't need a lot of visuals. You need a bullock carts going here and there, and the guy is thinking and sitting on a laptop. No, right? So I think again, I don't take it literally that every design has to have a pages and elements of design. It can just be a blank screen. And I'll tell you, blank screen, white space, and that's what I'll tell you. In my first company, right? My boss was a guy who actually designed Excel, Microsoft Excel, right? Excel and part of Word. So he told me actually in Windows software people pay for white spaces. So otherwise, all the gray you occupy, right, with buttons and this people pay for white spaces. In a Word, maximum white space is what people pay for. Google, for example, single box. So I think base design need not be always very visual colors, and more if as the world is going, design is coming as a implicit function. It doesn't have to be very vocal that hey, I'm taking design, I'm doing a logo. Nothing. Most of the designs do not even know the logo, right? It's just damn that function upfront. So again, as I'm saying, look at outside in view of design. And many times, in fact, I always had to debate, right? When you do a speaking of Paytm, right? I used to fight. Oh, why Paytm logo is going away, right? The Paytm logo should be there because that mind record. But today, now that is not even required, right? Because that whole icon, the magnet you click on icon, is already in Paytm Mall, right? The app itself is Paytm. You have mind recall, right? Unless we are wasting that 2 centimeter space unnecessarily, right? Which otherwise could have been monetized in some different way. Or there's some design element, or give him white space so that there is a breather for him as a mind, right? I think that's best features can just be single line features. And I think we should definitely look at features of companies which have raised a lot more money. It's out there online. And you would just see like a simple text, right? One line.
Like I saw like Tesla kind of stuff.
That's it.
Okay, one last question because you've been talking about Paytm. Should we invest in Paytm IPO or not?
No comment because I'm a holder person.
Suresh, I think we have one more. We have one more question. So Ravi, your question, please.
How do designers understand money better? Is that a question?
Yes.
Yeah, I think start evaluating everything what you do, right? And I think beyond feeling good factor to it, right? Don't try to please your subordinates, clients. If you can somehow say that I have designed this because customers is going to, again, that's why I put that last line, design economics. If you can put a dollar value to what we are designing, if you're putting a time value to that, or effort value to what customers is going to spend, I think you will win much better. And put a stakeholding, right? See, a lot of time designers, actually, they are not risk takers. That's why they only please their bosses. Like CEO likes this color, so I'm okay with it. Or my client says that, okay, this should be circular. I'll make a circular thing because I as far as I get my money, right? But can designers say, you know what, don't pay me my fees, pay me when the revenue comes. When I think designers get to that stage, that I'll be success partner, that's when I think maybe you will understand money better. Because now you have a stake in the ground. Designer better sell and then only get your money, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question here. Thanks a lot for the interesting presentation, Bhushan. 2 questions, in fact. One was, what is the company name that you are talking about selling stocks for product that you buy? That name, I didn't get it. That's one thing. The question I wanted to ask was this. So what are all the different metrics that you use at various stages for evaluating product or a what do you call at different stages? Yeah.
So Bhushan will take this as the last question.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I think the company name is Stash, if I'm right. Stash.
Okay, thanks.
And I think again, I think it's Dash, it's investing made easy. In fact, there are a bunch of companies came later. I think West in India also they allow you to buy a Microsoft or Amazon sitting in India. But I think Stash is more important. And then your second question was what metrics? I think again I think sector-wise metrics differ, but I think we do value. Because I think investor is not looking for immediate ROI, right? And I'm looking at equity partnership to sell off. I'm not looking as a like for example, when I invest in a company, I don't say okay, when you make 100 rupees a profit, give me 20 rupees because I want 20% of the company. That doesn't work for VC investors because we are typically selling that 20% stock later on at a much higher price. So we don't do profit sharing, just for your understanding. But now, what metrics becomes important is you typically have revenue, number of customers, time engagement of your customers. Are the customers loving your product? Like, what is the customer feedback? And that's what, for example, if you're launching a food product, what are your ratings on Amazon? Are people giving 5-star ratings, etc.? What is the customer feedback about the product? And are there any kind of any other levers for this? But more importantly, the metrics itself is not something we are investing. We are investing in your growth path. So that metrics, when you say we have got 10,000 customers, if you got it in a fastest speed than anybody else in the market, or faster than a big leader. For example, if you make a stock market application, because I think we did ask this question, if you can make the customer buy a small stock 5 times versus ICICI kind of offers you to buy only 1 time, right? Their velocity, their frequency is 1 time purchase by 1 customer. But if you should have 5 buys in a month by a customer, that means you are doing something different. So because we are investing on your path so that my money can be multiplied, not your immediate profit. So that's where the journey of these metrics, the paths, velocities, frequencies, become equally important, or maybe sometimes highly important, higher than the metrics value itself.
Thanks, Bhushan.
Great.
So Bhushan, I think that was a really wonderful talk. I think you began the talk without a presentation and you spoke for about half an hour. So that was very refreshing and very engaging. I think one takeaway that I would like to mention is as designers, most designers shun marketing. And I think one thing that came out from your talk was, design and marketing, they need to really work together, whether at an institute level or even at an individual level. I think there is a case for both of them to really work together. So maybe we will have a further conversation on just this aspect some other time.
Yeah. And I would just say, like, designers, like this question came from product earlier. So how can designers work with product management, right? My answer is, why should designer not be a product manager?
Absolutely.
And same thing here. Why is the CMO has to be a marketer? Right? Why can't it be a consumer? Why can't it be a designer? Why do designer? So
Correct.
One way of working together is the answer is leading that position itself.
Absolutely.
Become like a supply demand kind of a thing. Just become own that piece.
Absolutely. Okay. Thanks, Bhushan, and thanks everyone. We can definitely connect with Bhushan for future talks and future questions that we might have, and I'll circulate his details. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye. Good to see many people.